Okay, I want to do an example of a flowchart, and then we'll talk about the logic, and then we'll reemphasize the syntax. So this example, what we want to do is create a program that's going to get an amount from the user, calculate how much the total with tax would be, and output that. So let's look at the individual steps to do that. First step, have to have the start entry point for our program, so we don't want to forget about that before we start thinking about getting the amount from the user. So that'll be the next step, a read statement, right? Because we're getting something from the user. We're going to read the user's name and the amount that we were talking about. So we want to calculate the total with tax. So we need to do an internal calculation or two first, right? So we got the read. So the next process is take that amount, multiply it by the tax rate, and that's going to go into a tax variable. So we don't really have the total yet, we just have the tax and the amount separately. So we're going to need another process to do that, right? So we need to flowchart a second step or another process that's going to take the amount, add the tax, and I guess add some shipping to it. That will be the total, right? So we got the amount, but to get to the total, we had to do a couple steps. Now that we have the total, we can output it. So we got a write statement with their name again and that total that we arrived at. Don't forget the last step is the termination symbol. That's the logic. Let's reemphasize the syntax of all this, okay? Termination symbol with start. Start needs to go in all caps. Next, we're going to do an input-output statement because we're getting something from the user. Don't forget to connect those with an arrow. Keyword read goes in all caps. We're reading in two things, the user's name and the amount they purchased or whatever. So I've got two variables, name, comma, space, second variable, which I called amount. The variable names are up to you. As many as you need here, just separate them with commas. Next, we're going to do a process. So we have an arrow and then a rectangle for the process symbol. You need to calculate some tax. So I have another variable that I call tax, and I'm setting it equal to the amount here times whatever the tax rate might be, 7.5% or whatever. Here's another important thing about flowcharting. Whatever you called your variable here, make sure you call it that here. If you called it lowercase a, don't put uppercase A here. Or if you call this AMT, don't call it amount here. So keep your variable names consistent throughout your program. So we got the tax and the amount, but we don't have a total, so I need another process, another arrow, another rectangle. I've got a third variable here, called fourth, I guess, called total. I'm setting it equal to the amount plus the tax plus some shipping. Those three things will get added and put into this total variable. And again, my variable names are consistent with whatever I called them before. We've got the total, we can output it, so we can go to another input-output symbol, parallelogram, keyword write goes in all caps, and then you can output as many things as you want. If we wanted, we could have output the total, the amount, the tax, and the total. If we want to do that, we would just put each of those variables separated by a comma. So I've got keyword write, one variable, comma space, another variable. In this case, we're just writing out their name and the total that we just calculated. Don't forget, last step, termination symbol, keyword stop in all caps.